Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Astroflower, the channel about energy. We're going to be going into the eclipses, lunar and solar eclipse, both in September, but also we're going to be looking at what happens in March in the early part of the year. So, a quick sort of gather of what eclipses are all about. So, they tend to happen in twos, in pairs. So you have the lunar eclipse, and then you have the solar eclipse. And these pairs are usually 6 months apart. And this is all to do with the rhythm and the orbit of the Earth and the Moon and so forth in accordance to the Sun. And that period between the two, so let's just say that the last eclipses were back in March and next year they'll be back in February. So it gradually moves tracks across time backwards, as it were, through time, very much like the stars and the astrological wheel, as it were, as we go through the ages. And that's going to be quite important because we're going to look into that at the end. I think this is a massive building point this year. I think 2025 is definitely the year of truths. Things are really coming to the surface, and this is on a personal level as much as on a collective level. And I think this is where the solar eclipses and the lunar eclipses actually explains to it quite well. So let's just have a look first of all at the physical sort of sense of what's happening in the lunar and the solar eclipses. And then we're going to look at it in an energetical sort of sense of how it's affecting the Earth's chakras. Okay. And then we're going to go into the bigger plan and see where we are in this transition over a long period of time, because we've obviously got an event that's building up. I think everybody can feel it in one form or another. And as we feel that event, and the reason we can feel it is because we are changing between one epoch and another. And when I talk about changing from one epoch to another, I'm talking about ages of houses. So usually a sign will be in, we will be in the age of a sign for roughly around about between 2000 and 2500 years. It deviates and varies occasionally between that sort of thing. So it roughly gives us this 24,000 year cycle to go round the wheel of all the signs. And we're going to be looking into that because it's very, very particular and really puts everything into context. We'll have a look at that at the end. In the meantime, let's just have a quick look at what's going on in the way of these eclipses. So here we go here. We have, let me just pull this up. Let's just pull up the first one. Here we go here. So here we have the lunar eclipse, which was back in March. Now, as you can well see, the moon is over South America, and the sun is over sort of the Philippines and so forth. And as it goes forward in time, this is where it's gradually coming into the eclipse, and then the full eclipse happens just about there. Now, this is very particular, and we should keep an eye on that as we go forward, because it starts in that period there. It's just there, so it's really starting, which is a very particular spot in the Earth according to energy. Now it goes across the Pacific. As it gradually goes across the Pacific, it's going towards Australia, and that's also a particular sort of thing. And it finally comes out around about Hawaii. And I tend to sort of say Hawaii is the sort of like reset button, as it were, to the Earth in a way, to certain extents. That's what was happening back in March in regards to the lunar eclipse. Let's just see what's happening in the 7th of September. Now, this is a different kettle of fish. We have the lunar eclipse, which is happening here, as you can well see, and it starts off in just north of Australia. Okay, so it starts off in Australia, and it doesn't really kick in until it gets into about just there. So it's just below India, Thailand, and so forth. And it really goes into full eclipse just underneath India. And as it comes through the full eclipse, it comes back out of the full eclipse on the other side, really just as it's starting to hit Africa. Now, these are very particular points in the energy of the Earth, which is obviously then affecting us. Now, that's the lunar eclipse. Let's just see what's going on with the solar eclipse. Now, here's the solar eclipse from March last year. So let's just bring that up there. So here we've got the solar eclipse. Now, as you can well see, it's going to be tied into North America, as you can well see. It comes out of the Atlantic in the middle, and then it starts pushing towards Europe, and it goes just touching on a very partial eclipse onto Ireland, but mainly you get a full eclipse where it goes right up to the North Pole. Now that's also very particular according to the lunar eclipses as well. You can see it just rushes across the top of northeast Canada there. That was back in March earlier on this year. So it's moving on the northern hemisphere. Now, if we go to the southern hemisphere, this is another situation where the lunar eclipse, or the solar eclipse, as it were, that's happening in September, which is this section here. This is where we can see it goes in a different direction. It comes out in the Pacific, and then we get the partial eclipse, which goes over New Zealand, but then it gradually goes down to the southern South Pole, as it were, or what was the South Pole, because the South Pole is now over Australia. But we don't get a full eclipse, as you can well see, on that solar eclipse. But I'd like you just to notice of where its starting point is more than anything else. Which is out by in Australia, because that's going to be quite important later on. Okay, so we've seen there. So the first lunar eclipse, it started in South America and went out in the Pacific and ended up in Hawaii, and then the lunar eclipse in September starts in sort of Indonesia sort of area, and then gradually works its way across to full eclipse just south of India. Now, there are two very particular points within the energy system of the Earth. On my chakra map, which I can show you, on my chakra map, it's this one here. Let me just bring it up for you here. So you can see in South America, on the left-hand side there, you can see in South America, now that's the root chakra. And then you can see the crown chakra, which is just above India. It's on Mount Kailash in India, and the root chakra is in Lake Salidar, the salt lake that's really high up there. You can see the curvature of the Earth and so forth. So you have the lunar eclipse, which is playing to the root and the crown chakra. Let me just show you what that looks like if we look at it in the sense of an overlay. So let's just have a look at this first one. So this is the lunar eclipse that happens in South America, which goes to the root chakra. Here it is here. Let me just obviously flicking between screens. Here it is here. So as it comes through, it just starts moving on there. So it's just above the root chakra. Now, anyone who's been paying attention to the messages from energy, the root and the crown chakra have been very, very particular at the moment. It's taking a position that seems to be in a way that almost it's like it's taking a back seat, as if like the decisions have already been made and the path that we should be leading, because our crown, which is up here obviously, and our root chakra is one chakra. They're not two different chakras, and they have a vertical point that goes between the two. So obviously if your crown chakra expands, your root chakra will contract. And this happens to, it holds the like karmic path. It holds your raison d'etre as we go forward. And so it's already within the beginning part of the year, the lunar side, which is the unseen side of energy in a way, is really starting to put into place the root and the crown chakra. Now let's just have a look at the next lunar eclipse, which is in September. So let's just have a look at that and see what's going on with that. Here you can see it just starts, it starts off mainly just next to, for example, next to the solar plexus that you can see just to the bottom right of the moon, as it were. But as it comes into full eclipse, it's just below the crown chakra. And I think this is where the energy at the moment is kind of sort of saying, if you know what's going on, then if you can feel energy or you're engaged in energy in a way of your life, and as I'm, in the messages from energy, I've been talking about this a lot, of getting into alignment with energy, getting into rhythm with energy. And this is on anything from small, from sort of like making a cup of tea to building a house. Whatever you're doing in your life, just being in alignment with the energy will create a lot less frustrations for you, will make the evident path, make the path that you're supposed to be going down very, very clear to you in what you should be doing. There shouldn't really, in theory, be any real choices in any of it. So let's go on to see what's happening with the solar eclipse now. Let's start off with so here's that solar eclipse here that we can see here. It comes into play here. It comes out of that midpoint there where you can see it hits point 11 and then goes on towards, it wants to go towards the heart chakra. Now, when we look at the heart and the solar plexus, they are very well connected without being connected, as it were. So that's sort of like, that's the solar eclipse that comes out in March, at that period there. And that was all about the heart, really, of sort of allowing your heart to sort of shine, I guess. Where it's playing into the heart chakra. If you get an eclipse on the heart chakra, it reduces the energy that's coming out of the heart chakra, which we have to compensate for. So in the earlier part of this year, there was a lot of degree of passions about things, about change, about everything like that. And I'm not sure it really came through fully for everybody. And then it started involving what was the solar plexus. Now let's have a look and see what's going on with so here we have the solar eclipse that's happening in September. Let's just put it through as we go through here. And as you can see, it comes out just shy of the solar plexus. So it is connecting the two. The solar eclipse is connecting the two. And with it coming out in September, as it goes down to the southern hemisphere, goes down to the South Pole, it's what it's doing here is also asking us to sort of stand up and be counted, in start involving our solar plexus, because that's what's coming through. Where it's getting a lack of that, we can then embody that space, as it were. And I think this is all to do with doing and having determination and courage about living your pathway more than anything else. And we've been seeing this in the messages from energy. Over the last 6 months, it was all about getting into alignment, testing the system, allowing big pulses of energy to come through. And as these big pulses of energy come through, we were in a position where we could reposition ourselves according to where we're going. My solar plexus is playing up again. The direction that we should be following in. So it's all about the crown and the root. And the other thing is like with the solar plexus, with the solar eclipses, it goes up into the North Pole and goes down into the South Pole. And I guess you could say, if you're talking about a planet, the North and the South Pole, in theory, are their geological crown and root chakras. And it seems to be reinforcing this. And I think this is like what energy is sort of trying to say here is saying, that there is a rhythm that is much, much more powerful than we can imagine, that is also got a, it works in a very short-termism. That's why we do the messages from energy every week, but it also looks on a longer-term plan. So we're looking at the next 6 months, but also, and this is where the difference is, I think it's now looking at the next 2,500 years at the same time. So why am I saying this? Well, I think when Pluto went through Capricorn over the past 18 years, I think that was it was almost like heralding the future, because the ages go from Pisces, Aquarius, Capricorn, Sagittarius. It goes the other way to what we count in our calendar. And I was sort of saying we're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius, because Pluto is moving into Aquarius. And I think these eclipses here are the last song and dance of the age of Pisces. So let's look at what houses are connected to these eclipses. So here you have a list of the eclipses. So we got the lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse on March the 4th, which is in Virgo. Okay, and this is very particular. Okay, and then we have the solar eclipse, which was in Aries, which was on March the 29th. Now they're quite close together, they're only 2 weeks apart. Same with these two, same with the September ones as well. But it's in Aries rather than it is in Pisces. And this is where we get the big change. And this is where energy flips as well, the sort of narrative in a way, because it goes from Virgo in March on the lunar eclipse, and then goes into Pisces in September, obviously because they're 6 months apart. But this is the big difference, is Aries through to Virgo. And this is where in the eclipses that are coming up in September, we have that perfect balance between Virgo and Pisces. Now they're opposite signs. Now these opposite signs are pure signs that we need to really understand. In the first combination, we had Virgo with Aries. Now, do Virgo and Aries work well together? Well, they are both pure signs as well. You've got Pisces, Aries, Virgo, and Libra in regards to the Astroflower is in what are pure signs, obviously for each element. And Virgo and Aries have actually a huge amount in common. They don't necessarily approach things in the same sense, but if they're playing on the same team and they're going after the same goals, they are a formidable team together. And this is where, at the beginning of the year, we had these two sort of energies tag teaming one another in order to get the truth out to the surface. As we're going through the year, and they're sort of eking out very slowly, and I think at the detriment to the human system or the human beings in total, we're now going back into balance. And it's almost as if energy is sort of saying, you had your chance to come clean. Unfortunately, you may not have come perfectly or totally clean with the rest of the humans. So we're going to move on from you people. And I think this is where will have to do with that shift that I was talking about in another video, in which is going to happen around about the solar eclipse as well, around about the 20th, between the 15th and the 20th of September, right in the middle between the two eclipses, I think. And this is a shift geologically, which is also going to provoke a shift for us consciously. And this perfect balance between Virgo and Pisces, because you get the pure water with the pure earth, makes for very, very fertile ground. Really good energy for creativity and so forth. And as we've just gone through the age of Pisces over the last 2,200 years, I think this is the last fanfare of the age of Pisces more than anything else. It's bringing everything to a crescendo, to a pinnacle point where we will understand and see through the smoke screens which have been put in front of everybody's faces for so long, in front of everybody's vision for so long through the human species. And the reason I say this is because Pisces is really, which we've just been going through. If you look at, say, like Jesus, for example, when he did the Sermon on the Mount, or the feeding of the 5,000, so he had 2 fish, Pisces, and 5 loaves. Now, if you look at Virgo, she's that pure figure that's holding 5 sheaves of wheat carrying 5 sheaves of wheat, the 5 loaves. And the idea of feeding 5,000 people was the idea of feeding 5,000 years of understanding. As far as this is the interpretation that I'm understanding for this whole thing. And that 5,000 years comes between Virgo, the Virgin Mary, as it were, because the old term for Virgo was Bethlehem, or the house of bread. And when Jesus was on the mount, as it were, and he was giving his speech, he didn't say, "I will be with you to the end of time." He said, "I will be with you to the end of the age." And this is where we're moving on from that, from the time of Pisces into the time of Aquarius. Now, the time of Aquarius is all to do with John the Baptist, the water bearer, the person who baptizes everything, and that washes everything down. And as we move into Aquarius, what's been happening over the past 2,000 years with Pisces and Virgo is a struggle between good and bad. And that's why we had the Dark Ages in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries, where, things went a bit sort of like bat crazy. And, we were discovering the ideas of, or exploring the ideas of good and bad. As we go into Aquarius, this is where judgment comes in. So then we can wash away all the illusions of life and start with something that is a lot cleaner, a lot fresher, so we can have a real honest engagement with energy rather than it being very superficial. And it becomes a critical part of our way of being as individuals and as a collective. And this is what the eclipses is all about. I think it's the last sort of fanfare, as I say, from the age of Pisces to announce that we're going into the age of Aquarius. Now, at the same time, we have this AI, it's 3i Atlas that's coming through, this satellite. Now, or satellite, or comet, or, spaceship, or whatever we seem to, there's a lot of interpretations at the moment. I will be doing a video on that. And I think that's systematic to this time as well, because it ties in a little bit to the red comet from the Hopi prophecies, and also from the South American, the Mayan calendar and so forth. It ties in very much with that sort of thing as well. So, we will be doing a video on that. But as regards as in a mechanical clock, I think here is where energy and nature are starting to announce the end of one period or epoch, and we're moving into another epoch, which is all about the age of Aquarius. So let that sun shine. I really do want to break into sun, but let that sun shine. So when we take into the eclipses, now is the time to have a fertile energy over the next 6 months. And when I say fertile energy, it's fertile about your ideas. It's fertile about the pathway that you know that you should be living, and only you can live your pathway. We're not all living the same paths, obviously, and there's multitudes of reasons for that. But at the same time, as individuals, the way in which we can engage in this is go to something that is going to give that fertile ground so we can change our interaction with energy. We can dispel a lot of illusions that's been put out there about energy over the past 30, 40 years or even longer, and start discovering our real true interaction with it. Okay, so whatever you're doing over the next 6 months, and a lot of passions have been coming back into this as well, into the messages from energy as well. Whatever you're doing, living it fully in your pure creative form, and whatever you're doing in life and whatever is important for you, the moment you step into that, that's when we're going to change everything within the world, and therefore we can change everything within the universe as well. It is a domino effect. Okay, so I hope this helps you out for seeing what the energies are going to be like over the next sort of 6 months. It's going to be very interesting. I think it's all going to be about purity, and that's why we're coming into the age of Aquarius, and also about our creativity side of it all. Okay, I will see you tomorrow for the messages from energy, and also that video that I'm going to be doing on the 3-eye atlas as well, which will probably be coming out on Wednesday as well. I will see you there for that. Thanking you very much for subscribing, liking and sharing and so forth. In the meantime, all left for me to say is don't forget, life should be fun, so please do enjoy.